Okay, in this video we're going to do basic statistics in R. It's going to be just a little bit of basic data management too. How to write some code in R, how to do a few things with the right coding conventions, and just how to manage RStudio. So I've got RStudio up, and we're going to go through descriptive statistics, quick plots, and pulling subsets from data. And we may bleed this into 2 videos instead of 1. So, the very first thing I do when I write R code, especially in R script, is I start with this line of code. Remove list equals ls. What this does is it removes anything from working memory. If you've coded before in languages like R, Python, MATLAB, things like that, it keeps some of your variables in working memory, and it's oftentimes disadvantageous to leave them there because you might actually have something in working memory that's named something that you didn't expect. So I like to run that line of code. Remember, I'm running code by doing Control-Enter or Command-Enter on a Mac. It parrots the command back to me here in the command line, and it didn't do anything because there was nothing in working memory. So for this video, what we're going to do is pull in some data, and then we're going to just do stuff to it. So I'm going to go to Import Dataset from Reader, and I'm going to do Browse. And in this particular case, I'm in the right folder. I have the Tour de France data, which I'm going to pull in. And what I like to do is down here in the bottom, down here in this little spot right down there, it gives you the code that you would need to pull your data in. So what I do is actually copy this, just Control-C or Command-C on a Mac. And instead of importing, I actually just pull that code in here. And now, every time I run this script, I can avoid all of the mouse clicks of importing the data. I can just run the reader library, which is a library that allows us to read data in, and run the line of code that read the CSV file in. And now let's just look at what we have. If I view the Tour de France data, I just clicked on it, I can see all sorts of things that are in here. Looks like I've got cyclists who are riding the Tour de France. I've got the distance, I've got the times, I've got total time, their speeds, etc. I don't actually need to have that up. I can also click the down arrow here and see the sorts of variables that I have in the Tour de France data and their data types. Again, I don't need to see that right now either. Let's just do some basic statistics. So the problem I want to do is I want to pull out just the total time. Now let me move that over. Just the total time. So if I pull this down again, that's one of my columns. That's the total time column. And then I want to do mean, standard deviation, count, all that sort of thing. So I'm going to give it its own name for right now. And I could do less than dash to get the gets symbol. Or on a Mac, it's option minus. Oops. On a Windows, I think it's alt minus or something like that. And so I'm going to do Tour de France data, $, total time. And if I run that, what we're going to notice is that over here I actually have just a column of data that got pulled into RStudio. And now I'm just going to do all of the tasks that it asked for. Let's do the mean of total time. And by the way, notice that I only typed a couple letters and then I just press tab and I can complete that word because that word is already in working memory. If I run that, I've got my mean, standard deviation, SD of total time. Run it, I've got my standard deviation. Variance, let's see, variance is probably VAR. Hey, look at that. Okay, so if I pause, it gives us all of this really nice help information when I pause on it. And if I open it up, it tells me what it wants me to type in. I want the total time, and I can run it. I can see my variance. If I want first quartile and third quartile, for example, or the median, I can use the quantile command. Let's do this. Q1 gets quantile of total time, comma, 0.25 for the 25th percentile. And I run it. Now notice I did something a little different here. It did not parrot this back to me. All it said was, here's the command you ran. It didn't actually give me the number, but it did save it over here in my working environment. Well, that's what I told it to do. There's a nice little trick that if I wanted to do both, I can wrap the entire line in parentheses, and now if I run it, it parrots the line of code back to me. Oops, I didn't realize that was in front, sorry. It gives me the answer and it saves it in memory. So sometimes that's rather handy to do. I don't always want to do that, sometimes I just want to write it to working memory. So if I do Q3, I'm going to do quantile, total time 0.75. My median, I could do quantile, oops, sometimes tab completion gets you in trouble. Total time 0.5. Okay, now I just wrote a couple lines of code and I didn't run them, so if I highlight those lines of code and Control Enter or Command Enter on all of them, it'll run them and put them into working memory. And then if I come down here in the bottom, I can say, well, what is Q1? What is Q3? What is the median? Or I could come up here and just highlight the word and run it, and it runs that again. Highlight Q1, runs it. If I just highlight the command, I run it. Lots of different ways to run this. All right, let's keep cooking here. The minimum, well, that's a relatively easy command. It's probably min of total time. Oops, total time. Okay, I can also do max of total time. Now, the data set that I have here doesn't have any missing data, but you really want to be cognizant of that. If your data actually has missing values, you can pass an extra command into all of these, mean, standard deviation, min, quantile, so on. Or I'm going to do na.rm equals true. And what that, oops, not nr.rm, na.rm. And what that does is it removes the NAs from your data. So I'm telling it, go find the mean, but ignore all of the things in the data that are NAs, that are just not there. And I can run it. In this case, I'm going to get exactly the same answer I did before, because there were no NAs. But this will actually save you a lot of hassle if you just remember, hey, my data might be sparse and it might be missing stuff. So if I put that in all of these commands, it'll run that for me. Okay, I think maybe the last thing we'll do in this video is let's just build some really quick plots of this data. We have better ways to do plots. The actual native graphics in R are a little bit clunky. They work if you want a really quick plot. You want something that's just, I just need a histogram, I don't need anything fancy, and I'm going to make a decision off that histogram and move on. Well, okay, so the command is really easy. I'm just going to do hist. And again, if you're not sure, when I do hist, and I just pause there for a second, it gives me some help stuff. And I just do my total time, Control Enter. Ooh, it has to think about this one apparently. It runs it, and then it populates my plot window down here. And if I want to see it a little bit bigger, I can zoom that in, and now I'm part of the histogram. Let's zoom that back out. Let's put it over here. Now I can look at the histogram. Notice that it's not fancy colors. It did all of the titling and labeling for you, but it's a quick, easy plot. I can do the same thing for box plot, and it is box plot. Wow, very surprising name there, of total time. I'm going to run it. It gives me the box plot. Again, it doesn't do anything fancy, but it's at least nice to have a quick, easy box plot that I can build. Okay, I think I'm going to push the rest of the basic stat stuff onto the next video.